Welcome to my channel. The galaxy was burning long before the first shot was fired, long before the stars themselves seemed to tremble at the word human. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, where empires argued under banners of peace, humanity was a whispered legend, a dangerous, unpredictable species best kept at a distance. But fate had other plans when Captain Adrian Holt, a Terran officer from the old warfronts, was chosen to guard Princess Saralyn of the Auran Empire during a fragile truce. The humans had only recently joined the interstellar stage, and while most species viewed them with suspicion, Saralyn had insisted that her protector be from Earth. She had heard tales of human bravery, of soldiers who stood even when their worlds were falling. But no one expected what would follow, because that decision would ignite something that no council, no empire could control. The first attack came without warning. A rogue faction of the Vath clan struck during the peace voyage, boarding the royal vessel in a storm of plasma fire. Alarms screamed through the corridors as alien guards fell one by one, and amid the chaos, Adrian stood between the princess and death. His combat armor was scorched, his weapon out of charge, yet he never moved from her side. He fought with his bare hands when the last shot was spent, crushing through the attackers with a fury that made even the alien sensors falter. When it was over, the ship was silent, floating in debris and blood. The princess survived, but news of the humans' defiance spread like wildfire through the galaxy. To some, he was a hero. To others, he was a threat. And among those who watched was the most feared ruler in known space, the Auran Queen, ruler of the Shadow Hive. They called her Kareth, the Queen of Chains, a matriarch whose fleet ruled across 1,000 suns. Her kind had fought humanity before, back when Earth's fleets first entered galactic war. She remembered the way human warships bled light, how they refused to surrender even when their worlds burned. When Kareth learned that a human had risked his life for a royal alien heir, something in her ancient mind twisted with curiosity and desire. She summoned her fleets, cloaked and silent, and intercepted the rescue convoy bound for the Auran capital. The humans who came for Adrian never arrived. The princess watched in horror as black ships surrounded them, pulling them into shadow. Adrian woke days later in a vast throne chamber made of bone and steel, the air humming with alien voices. The queen sat before him, eyes glowing like dying suns, and said only one thing: "You belong to me now, human." Adrian didn't understand what she meant at first. The queen's court believed humans to be savage relics, not worthy of attention. But Kareth had seen something rare. She told him she had studied humanity's wars, their defiance, their love. "You kill for those you care for," she said softly, her talons tracing the scar on his cheek. "And that is power." She demanded he serve her as her personal guard, a symbol of strength. He refused, of course. He said humans didn't serve tyrants, not even beautiful ones draped in galaxies. That defiance only fascinated her more. Days became weeks, weeks into months. The queen tested him with temptations, illusions, even pain, but Adrian remained unbroken. He spoke of humanity, of Earth, of freedom, and his words spread through her empire like forbidden scripture. Some of her own soldiers began to whisper that perhaps the queen's fascination with the human was not weakness but awakening. Meanwhile, far beyond the hive, the Galactic Council argued over what to do. The Auran demanded Adrian's return. The humans demanded justice. But the hive didn't answer calls. The queen's domain was cut off by living storms and black holes, unreachable by normal means. Only one Terran fleet dared to try, the 7th Expeditionary Armada, commanded by Admiral Reeves, a man who had once trained Adrian. Reeves knew what kind of man he had sent into that mission. He also knew that if the hive refused to release him, humanity would come not to negotiate, but to end a reign. The council begged the humans not to intervene. "It's suicide," they said. Reeves only replied, "So is taking one of ours." Within the hive, Adrian began to see cracks in the queen's rule. He had saved her once from an assassination attempt, and for the first time, she looked at him not as a captive, but as someone who understood loneliness. She confessed that her empire was built on fear, that her ancestors had conquered worlds only to find themselves trapped by their own legend. Power without love, she said quietly one night, is just another cage. He told her that humanity learned that lesson the hard way too. For a moment, her sharp eyes softened, and she whispered, "Then stay. Teach me what it means to be free." But freedom was not something he could give her. It was something she had to take for herself. The humans arrived before dawn in hive time. Thousands of Terran warships, their hulls glowing with the light of compressed suns, appeared in orbit. They didn't send a warning. They sent a message: return him or face extinction. The hive trembled. The Queen stood at the viewing deck, watching the human fleet unfold like a vengeful god. She could feel the rage of an entire species radiating through the void. Yet, when she turned to Adrian, she saw no anger in his eyes, only sorrow. He begged her to release him peacefully, to avoid war. For the first time in her long reign, the Queen hesitated. She had conquered countless systems, silenced entire civilizations, but she had never met a creature who defied her without hate. Finally, she stepped forward and said, "Go. But know this, I release you not because I must, but because you have shown me what strength truly is." And with that, she opened the gates of her realm. When Adrian stepped onto the transport, the human fleet saluted him. The hive watched as their queen stood alone, silent, her empire forever changed. The Galactic Council would later call it the day the hive bowed. But those who were there knew it wasn't a surrender, it was something far deeper. It was the day an alien queen understood humanity. And though he left her world behind, she kept one human word etched into her throne: belonging doesn't mean control. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this cinematic HFY story about humanity, aliens, and the power of choice, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more sci-fi tales that explore the heart behind the stars. The hive was a maze of sound and shadow, alive with whispering wings and the slow pulse of alien life that glowed beneath black glass walls. Adrian's first memory was of the hum that seemed to come from inside his skull, as if the place itself were breathing through him. When his eyes opened, the air shimmered with faint bioluminescence. He was no longer on a human ship. No metal, no seams, no familiar shape. Just endless curves of organic matter, walls that shifted like they were thinking. He tried to move, but a smooth restraint of living silk wrapped his wrists. As he struggled, a shape glided from the darkness, tall, elegant, terrifying. It was the Queen. Her armor seemed grown from her own body, threads of obsidian bone that caught the dim light like liquid. Her eyes, deep violet pools with flecks of molten gold, studied him not as a prisoner, but as a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You fought for another species," she said softly, her voice echoing inside his head. "You bled for one who was not your own. Why?" Adrian met her gaze, jaw clenched. "Because that's what humans do," he answered, his voice hoarse but steady. "We protect, even when it costs us everything." The Queen tilted her head, intrigued. "And who protects you, human?" That question hung in the air, heavier than any weapon. She turned away before he could respond, her wings unfolding like silk curtains as she disappeared down the glowing corridor. For days, or maybe weeks, Adrian lost track of time. The hive had no sunrise, no clocks, only the rhythm of the Queen's court, where strange creatures bowed and hissed, each one older than human history. The air itself carried pheromones that clouded thought, and yet Adrian's mind remained sharp. He learned their language by listening, their rituals by watching. He realized they feared her, every drone, every soldier. The Queen's rule was absolute, but her silence toward him was something new. One night, she summoned him to her private chamber, a vast hall suspended over a sea of light. The walls pulsed faintly with the heartbeats of the hive, and the air trembled as she approached. "Do you know why I keep you alive?" she asked. Adrian didn't answer. "Because you interest me, because you are chaos with purpose. When you fight, you do not seek power, you seek meaning. My kind has forgotten that." Her claws traced a line in the air, and a holographic image appeared. Battles, fleets burning, Human ships standing their ground against impossible odds. You call this courage. I call it madness. Adrian took a step closer, his voice low but defiant. Maybe that's the difference between us. You rule by fear. We survive by hope. Her gaze flickered, a faint tremor running through her as though the word hope was something she hadn't heard in centuries. Hope, she repeated, testing it like a foreign taste. Hope is a disease that kills empires. Adrian smiled faintly. Or saves them. Her wings unfurled again, catching the glow of the chamber, and for a heartbeat, her face softened. But then the Queen's soldiers entered, dragging in something that froze him. A human beacon module, broken and sparking. Your people are searching, she said. They will come. And when they do, I will show them what happens when they trespass upon my realm. Adrian's anger flared. You think you can break humanity with fear? You'll only make us stronger. The Queen stepped close enough that he could feel the cold hum of her breath. We shall see, Protector. Days turned into a quiet war of wills. She tested him with questions about Earth, about humanity's endless wars, about love. He answered carefully, sometimes honestly, sometimes deflecting, but every conversation left her more uncertain, as if his defiance was a mirror she didn't expect to face. The hive began to change. Drones that once hissed at him now hesitated. The guards no longer bound his hands. When he walked through the halls, whispers followed, alien voices murmuring the human's name like a myth reborn. The Queen noticed, but she didn't stop it. She watched instead, fascinated by how one fragile creature could reshape an empire simply by refusing to bend. One evening, she appeared without her crown, without her armor, her face bare beneath the soft light. I have seen galaxies burn, she said, her voice almost human. But I have never seen anyone stand in the fire and smile. Adrian looked at her, weary but unyielding. Maybe that's what it means to be human. For the first time, the Queen laughed. A quiet, broken sound that made the walls tremble. Then, perhaps, I envy you. She turned away before he could respond, her silhouette framed against the endless glow of the hive's core. That night, for the first time, she dreamed. And when she woke, the galaxy had already begun to move toward war. The hive trembled as rumors spread like electric whispers through the living corridors, carrying one impossible truth. The human had spoken to the Queen as an equal. No one dared even look directly at her without fear of death. Yet this mortal, this fragile creature of flesh and defiance, had stood in her presence and refused to kneel. Across the sprawling empire of the hive, her soldiers felt the change, like the shift in gravity before a storm. Adrian noticed it too. The air was different now, less suffocating, less hostile. The drones who once hissed and bowed when he passed now lingered in silence, watching him with something that looked almost like respect. He didn't understand why the Queen allowed it, or why she had not simply crushed him and ended this strange charade. But deep inside, he sensed something that frightened him more than death itself. She wasn't trying to break him anymore. She was learning from him. Each day she summoned him to her throne chamber, no longer to interrogate but to speak. Her questions grew softer, stranger. She wanted to know what made humans laugh, what made them risk their lives for strangers, why they built monuments to people long dead. You burn so brightly, she murmured one day, circling him like a predator curious about its prey. Yet you are the most fragile things in the galaxy. What drives you to stand against fate when even gods would bow? Adrian's answer was simple, almost quiet. Because we only get one life. That makes every choice matter. The Queen turned away, her wings twitching in thought. She had lived centuries, through wars, conquests, betrayals, but no one had ever spoken to her like that. For her, eternity had become a prison. For him, mortality was liberation. Days became nights. Though in the hive, there was no sky, no stars, only the faint pulse of the biosphere above them. Yet Adrian began to mark time by her visits, by the way her eyes changed when she spoke of the past. He learned that the Queen had once been a child of peace, before her mother's death had thrown her into a war of succession. To survive, She had killed her sisters and silenced her heart. Her people called her perfect because she felt nothing. But when she looked at Adrian, the illusion cracked. He could see it in her gaze, the longing for something real, something she couldn't command. One evening, she brought him to a high platform overlooking the hive's living core, where rivers of light flowed beneath transparent floors. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. "It is the heartbeat of my world. It has never stopped for anyone." She turned toward him, eyes dim with ancient sorrow. "But when you speak, it falters." Adrian didn't know what to say. The air between them grew heavy, charged with something neither of them understood. He saw her not as the monster of galactic legend, but as someone trapped inside her own crown. "You don't have to be their god," he said. "You can be free of this." She smiled bitterly. "And what then? My empire would devour itself within days. My people know only the law of dominance. They do not understand compassion." "Then teach them," he said softly. "Start with one act of mercy." The queen's claws tightened, her breath trembling. "And what mercy would you have me show, human?" Adrian looked her straight in the eye. "Let me go." For a long, silent moment, she said nothing. Then her wings spread wide, the chamber filling with dark light. "You ask me to give up the one thing in this universe that defies me," she said. "You, who have infected my hive with doubt, who have turned my silence into questions." She stepped closer, so close he could feel the faint vibration of her pulse through the air. "You have made me weak." But Adrian shook his head. "No, you've made yourself strong enough to feel again." Her breath hitched, a sound half fury, half fear. Then she turned away, the walls of the chamber rippling with her heartbeat. "Leave me," she whispered, and her guards dragged him back to his quarters. That night the hive's song changed. It was faint at first, a low vibration running through the corridors, unsettling the drones, waking the sleeping hive ships that circled the queen's world. The soldiers whispered that their queen had dreamed, a thing thought impossible. In her dream, she had seen fire and oceans and a blue planet that spun beneath a yellow sun. And at its center stood the human, looking back at her, hand outstretched, as if offering her something she didn't know she'd lost. When she woke, she summoned no council, gave no orders. Instead, she stood before the great window of her throne and whispered to the stars. "What are you doing to me, human?" Adrian didn't know she could dream, nor that she was beginning to unravel the chains of her own making. But he could feel it. The hive was changing. Its rhythm, its breath, its silence. It all bent around something new. The guards who once treated him as a prisoner now bowed with uncertain reverence. And though he didn't yet understand why, he knew that every word he had spoken to her was echoing far beyond her throne. He had come as a protector. Now, somehow, he had become the spark of a revolution inside the heart of the most feared empire in the galaxy. The storm began in silence. Across the hive's endless network of living ships, something unseen started to ripple through the neural web, a pulse of unease that no one could name. The queen no longer ruled from her throne every hour of the day. She withdrew into the heart of her palace, summoning no ministers, ignoring all transmissions from the Galactic Council demanding her attendance at the treaty summit. Her court was in disarray. Some whispered that she was ill, others that she had been bewitched by the human. Those who dared to say his name spoke it in fear, the protector, the earthborn, the one who defied the queen. And though Adrian was locked inside the upper chamber, guarded by soldiers of living metal, he could feel the tension through the floor beneath his feet. The hive was trembling, not from revolt, but from confusion. 1,000 instincts warred inside one mind, theirs and hers. When the queen finally returned to him, she was not the same. The glow of her eyes was dimmer, her crown absent, her posture uncertain. "I once thought strength meant never bending," she said quietly, her talons tracing the organic walls that seemed to shift with her touch. "But now the hive bends even when I do not." Adrian watched her carefully. There was no arrogance in her now, no command, only a strange human exhaustion. "Maybe that's not weakness," he said. "Maybe that's them changing with you." Her wings folded close to her body. No, human. They are waiting for me to choose. To decide whether I kill you or let you live. He didn't flinch. Then decide, he said. But know that whichever choice you make will define not just your empire, but you. The queen's breath trembled again. Do you not fear death? Adrian's answer was simple, almost weary. Fear doesn't stop us. It reminds us what's worth protecting. Those words struck her harder than any weapon. For the first time in centuries, the Queen of Chains felt tears burn behind her eyes. Not of sorrow, but of something deeper. She dismissed her guards and turned away, her wings catching the faint light that leaked through the ceiling. You are an impossible creature, she whispered. Everything about you defies reason, logic, even instinct. How can something so small carry so much fire? Adrian's reply was quiet, but steady. Because when everything else is taken, all that's left is the will to stand. Her claws curled. I have seen that fire destroy worlds. Then maybe it's time it saved one, he said softly. The following days blurred into uneasy quiet. No one saw the queen, and yet, through the hive's shared consciousness, every soldier could feel her turmoil. The great fleets that patrolled the black zones halted their movements. The Royal Council convened in secret, plotting to remove her if she did not act soon. In the darkness of her throne, Kareth stared at a single image replaying in her mind, the way the human had stood before her, refusing to kneel, bloodied and broken, yet unbowed. That memory burned brighter than any of the stars she had conquered. It terrified her, and yet, she could not let it go. When she closed her eyes, she saw not a prisoner, but a mirror. Then came the signal. A faint, pulsing beacon barely detectable beneath the hive's interference field. A Terran distress frequency, embedded deep within the substrata of her world. The humans had found him. She should have ordered her ships to destroy it, to erase the source before the Terran fleet could triangulate it. But instead, she stood frozen, torn between two empires, her duty and her desire. If she allowed them to come, war would be inevitable. If she destroyed the signal, she would become everything he said she was. She stared at the beacon for a long time, until her reflection in the console looked almost human. What have you done to me? She murmured, closing her fist around the holographic projection. Why can't I end you? When she appeared in Adrian's chamber again, her expression was unreadable. Your people are coming, she said flatly. They will burn my world to ash to retrieve you. Adrian's eyes widened. Then let me speak to them. I can stop this before it starts. The queen's voice turned sharp, almost desperate. You think they will listen to you? To a human prisoner. Adrian took a step forward. They'll listen to me because they know who I am. Because I never stopped being one of them. The queen's wings trembled. And what am I to you, human? She asked. Her tone was low, dangerous, yet underneath it was something fragile. Enemy? Captor? Or something else you can't name? Adrian hesitated, then spoke the truth. You are proof that even the darkest hearts can still choose the light. The silence that followed was thick, electric. Her eyes glowed faintly, wet at the edges. You speak of light as though you own it. No, he said softly, but I can share it. And for the first time she looked away, not in anger but in shame. If I let you go, she whispered, I lose everything. No, Adrian said. You gain what no ruler in this galaxy has ever had, freedom. The queen's voice broke. And if I cannot bear it? Adrian met her gaze with steady calm. Then I'll stand beside you until you can. Outside, the hive screamed. The Terran fleet had arrived. Massive, silver leviathans cutting through the void like blades of light. The ground shook as the first planetary defense fields ignited, filling the skies with blue fire. The queen stood at the edge of her throne platform, watching as human warships descended, their banners gleaming with the symbol of Earth. Her generals demanded orders, her council pleaded for vengeance. She gave none. Instead, she whispered into the storm, Stand down. The words rippled through the hive, confusing every mind connected to her own. Your Majesty, a warlord hissed, but she silenced him with a single glance. Enough blood, she said. No more chains. The drones froze. The ships halted mid-formation. Across the hive, the Queen's voice echoed through the telepathic link that bound every soldier to her will. We have ruled through fear for 10,000 years, she said. But fear ends now. Her generals shouted treason, but the hive itself began to shift, resonating with her pulse. The living walls glowed brighter, not in anger, but in release. The Queen turned to Adrian, her expression calm, resolute, almost human. Go, she said. Tell them I have chosen peace. Adrian stared at her, torn between gratitude and sorrow. They'll see this as a trap, he warned. Then show them it's not, she replied. You said hope could save an empire. Show me you were right. He nodded slowly, then stepped into the transport bay, the chamber flooding with white light. As the human shuttle lifted from the hive's surface, he looked back one last time. The Queen stood alone on her throne, wings unfurled like twilight banners. The hive bowed in silence. And though the galaxy would soon call it the day humanity's fleet broke the darkness, Adrian knew the truth. It was the day the darkness chose to let in the light. The human fleet filled the sky like a second dawn. Thousands of ships moved in perfect silence above the hive's world, their hulls reflecting the dying glow of the system's twin suns. The air on the surface shimmered with heat from their engines, the ground itself trembling beneath the gravity wells of Terran warships the size of cities. From orbit, Admiral Reeves watched the planet's biosphere pulse with eerie bioluminescence and clenched his jaw. We've confirmed visual of the Queen's palace, his comm officer reported. No defensive fire detected, sir. Reeves narrowed his eyes. No fire. That wasn't possible. The hive had never surrendered, not in its entire existence. Prepare all rail batteries, he ordered. If this is a trick, we end it fast. But something in his gut told him this was different. Something about the way the planet seemed to breathe, the strange stillness of it. And somewhere down there, his old friend was still alive. Inside the hive's palace, Adrian stood before the Queen one last time. She had removed her crown, her armor, even the bioforged jewels that marked her as divine. Her face, for the first time, was bare. The pulse of the hive around them was slower now, quieter, as though holding its breath. You should go, she said, her voice soft but heavy with meaning. Your kind waits for you, and my time in this story is ending. Adrian hesitated, unsure if he was leaving behind an enemy, an ally, or something he couldn't name. You could come with me, he said. They'd listen. We could prove this doesn't have to end in fire. A faint smile ghosted her lips. I am the fire, human. My people were born in it. If I leave, the hive will tear itself apart. They need me here, to show them another way. He took a slow breath. Then don't die trying. Her gaze softened, shimmering like distant starlight. We all die trying, Adrian Holt. That is how we live. Outside, the world erupted into motion. Human landing craft pierced the clouds, scattering silver contrails across the atmosphere. Hive soldiers gathered on the ridges, ready to defend, but the Queen's telepathic command froze them mid-step. Stand down. Her words flowed through their shared mind, a whisper of both command and mercy. Some obeyed instantly, dropping their weapons. Others resisted, screaming that she had gone mad. The hive's unity, once its greatest weapon, was fracturing under the weight of something new choice. Adrian felt it in the air like static, the war between instinct and awakening. They're afraid, he said quietly. They don't know what to do without orders. Neither do I, she admitted, her wings trembling. But fear is the first step toward freedom. Then the human transmission cut through the static. This is Admiral Reeves of the Terran Expeditionary Armada. The voice boomed across every channel. To the Hive Sovereign Kareth, you are surrounded. Release our soldier and surrender immediately. The Queen lifted her chin, eyes burning with both pride and sorrow. So they send a fleet for one man, she murmured. Your species does not abandon its own. Adrian smiled faintly. No, we never do. She turned toward him, and for a moment, something almost tender flickered across her face. Go then. Tell them the hive bows to no one, but we will not fight today. The next minutes blurred into chaos. The transport bay filled with human marines, their armor gleaming, their weapons humming with plasma energy. They were cautious, disciplined, scanning every shadow for betrayal. When they saw Adrian alive, standing beside the Queen, their helmets snapped toward him in disbelief. Sir, one whispered over comms. She's letting you go? Adrian nodded. She's letting us live. They escorted him back through the shining corridors of the hive, but as he stepped aboard the shuttle, he turned back one last time. The Queen stood on the threshold, wings outstretched, the light of the chamber painting her in gold and shadow. What will you tell them about me? She asked quietly. Adrian hesitated, then said, that you chose peace when everyone expected war. The shuttle lifted, rising through the hive's bioluminescent clouds toward the human flagship. From orbit, the soldiers and crew watched in stunned silence as no enemy fire followed. The hive world remained still, its energy signatures dim but alive. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the display as the shuttle docked. When Adrian stepped out, scorched and unshaven but alive, the Admiral broke protocol and pulled him into a rough embrace. You stubborn bastard, Reeves muttered. You made half the galaxy think we were coming for a war. Adrian managed a tired smile. Maybe we still are, just not the kind they expect. Later, in the council chambers aboard the flagship, chaos reigned. Ambassadors shouted, strategists demanded immediate occupation of the hive, and alien envoys accused humanity of manipulation. But Adrian's calm voice cut through the noise. You think victory means destroying them? It doesn't. It means teaching them what we fought for in the first place. One alien delegate hissed, you would trust the hive? They have enslaved worlds. Adrian met his gaze. And so did we once, until we learned better. The room fell silent. Reeves stepped forward and placed a single datapad on the table, a live feed from the hive world. The Queen stood before thousands of her subjects, disarming her own guard. She's not lying, the Admiral said. She's dismantling her empire from within. The galaxy didn't believe it at first. They called it a trick, a distraction, a temporary illusion. But days passed, then weeks, and no hive fleet moved. Instead, broadcasts began to emerge from deep space. Hymns of peace in the hive's ancient tongue, messages of surrender rewritten as pledges of coexistence. Across the stars, even the most hardened skeptics watched as the hive withdrew from conquered worlds, leaving behind something unthinkable: choice. Adrian often stood by the viewing deck, staring at that distant glow where her world spun in silence. Reeves joined him once and said, you think she'll keep her word? Adrian didn't look away. She already has. The rest is up to us. In the end, the galaxy didn't remember the hive war for the weapons, the fleets, or the fear. They remembered the moment a human stood unarmed before a queen of darkness and made her see light. They remembered the silence that followed, the quiet peace that felt more powerful than any victory song. And somewhere, beyond the reach of the council, on a planet still glowing with bioluminescent veins, the Queen of Chains stood alone beneath her throne of glass and whispered to the stars, I let him go, but he still belongs to me. And far away aboard the Terran flagship, Adrian Holt closed his eyes as if he had heard her across the void, a small, knowing smile flickering beneath the endless light of the human fleet. Peace never truly came in silence, it came in echoes. Weeks passed since the Terran fleet withdrew from hive space, yet the galaxy could still feel the tremor left behind by that one impossible moment when a human walked free from the heart of the most feared empire in existence. Across the stars, old alliances began to shift. The Galactic Council convened in endless session, trying to explain the unexplainable. The hive, they said, could not change. The Queen, they insisted, was playing a long game. But humanity knew better. They had seen the look in her eyes, the look of something awakening. Still, distrust ran deep. Terran worlds fortified their borders, fleets patrolled the void, and whispers of war lingered in every calm channel. Even among humans, There were those who believed Adrian Holt should never have been rescued at all. He compromised Earth's security for an alien queen, they said. He brought danger to our doorstep. But others called him something else, the Bridge, the man who made an empire hesitate. Adrian never wanted the title. He spent his days aboard the Terran flagship Resolute, working as liaison to the Council. His nights staring out at the endless black where the Hive's world glowed faintly like a heartbeat on the edge of the void. He couldn't explain the pull he felt, the sense that something between him and Kareth still lingered, some invisible thread neither distance nor silence could sever. He hadn't spoken of her to anyone since his return, not even to Admiral Reeves, who watched him with quiet worry. "You left something down there," Reeves said one night. "Or maybe someone." Adrian's gaze stayed fixed on the stars. "You don't understand," he murmured. "She wasn't the monster they said she was. She was trapped by her crown." Reeves sighed. "And what about you, Adrian? Are you sure you didn't get trapped too?" Meanwhile, deep within the Hive, Kareth stood before her council for the first time since the humans' departure. The chamber was filled with her generals and ministers, each one demanding answers. "You've abandoned the old law," one shouted. "The Hive was built on conquest, not compassion." Another hissed, "The humans will see your mercy as weakness." The queen raised her hand, and silence fell like a blade. "Then let them," she said. "We have ruled through fear for 10,000 years. Where has it brought us? To chains of our own making." Murmurs rippled through the hall, but no one dared interrupt. Her voice grew softer, steadier. "Fear is the hunger that never ends. I am done feeding it." When one general dared to draw his weapon in defiance, her eyes flashed gold, and with a single thought she shut down his nervous system, leaving him paralyzed but alive. "You see?" she whispered. "Even mercy terrifies you." Word spread faster than light. Across Hive-controlled worlds, soldiers hesitated before killing. Drones stopped responding to violent commands. The neural web that once united them in absolute obedience was fracturing, reshaping itself under her new signal. For the first time in history, the Hive began to think not as one but as individuals. Some saw her as a prophet, others as a traitor. Rebellions flared in distant sectors, but Kareth did not strike back. Instead, she sent envoys to the Galactic Council, to the Thalkari, even to Earth. The Council refused to meet them, fearing manipulation. But one transmission slipped through directly to the Resolute. Reeves intercepted it and called Adrian to the bridge. The holographic screen flickered, and there she was, the Queen, cloaked in dim light, her expression unreadable. "Human," she said, her voice soft and resonant. "I do not call you to reclaim what was mine. I call to offer what was yours." Adrian's heart stopped. "You mean peace," he said. "No," she replied. "Understanding. Peace is the silence between battles. Understanding is what prevents them." Reeves folded his arms warily. "And why should we believe you?" The Queen's gaze turned cold. "You already do, or your fleet would still be orbiting my skies." For a long moment no one spoke. The room seemed to hold its breath as two empires, the Hive and humanity, waited for a single man to respond. Finally, Adrian said, "Then prove it. Let me come to you. No weapons, no fleets. Just words." Reeves turned sharply. "Are you insane? That's a death sentence." Adrian looked him in the eye. "No, it's a chance." And so, once again, a lone human ship cut through the dark, its course set for the Hive's homeworld. This time, the Hive did not fire. Instead, entire swarms of bioships parted in silence, lighting his path with faint golden veins that shimmered like candlelight in space. When he landed, the world was different. Where once there had been screams of command, now there was music, low, harmonic, like the sound of wind through glass. The Queen met him on the landing platform, wearing no crown, no armor. "You came," she said simply. "You asked," he replied. "I had to." She led him through the halls that once pulsed with violence. Now they pulsed with life. Hatchlings wandered freely, workers sang while rebuilding. The Hive was becoming something new, something almost human. That night, they stood together beneath the bioluminescent sky, watching new life take shape across her world. "You've done what no one thought possible," Adrian said. "You changed your people." She smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the glow of the stars. "No, human. You changed me. I only followed where your light led." He shook his head. "It wasn't me. It was you choosing to be more." She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "And yet, even now, I still hear your voice in the hive's dreams." He smiled sadly. "Maybe that's because part of me never left." The air between them grew still, the distance of two empires collapsing into silence. She reached out her hand, her talons brushing lightly against his wrist. A gesture that, in hive culture, meant not ownership, but bond. "Then let us make sure neither of our species forgets what we found," she said. In that moment, far above the planet, the Galactic Council detected an energy surge, something vast, ancient, and alive spreading through subspace like a heartbeat shared between worlds. It wasn't a weapon. It was a link, the first telepathic bridge ever formed between human and hive minds. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. Some called it a miracle, others an invasion. But for Adrian and Kareth, it was something simpler: understanding. Humanity had given the hive a glimpse of its soul, and the hive had given humanity a reflection of its own shadow. The future was uncertain, fragile, and vast, but for the first time it belonged to both. As the stars burned quietly above them, Adrian looked at her and said, "Maybe belonging doesn't mean possession after all." She smiled, her eyes glowing softly. "No," she whispered. "It means never needing to hold, because what is truly yours never leaves." And with that, the Queen of Chains and the Soldier of Earth stood together at the dawn of something neither empire had words for. A peace not written in treaties, but in hearts that had once been enemies. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, if you believe in the strength of humanity and the hope that bridges even the darkest divide, then please like, comment, and subscribe for more HFY stories on Sci-Fi Tales. The stars are vast, but sometimes, all it takes is one human heart to change the galaxy.